Ring of Honor, August of 2004. Testing the Limit and Scramble Cage Melee. Yeah, it's just as fucking dumb as it sounds. I know. But it's pretty sick. Got people jumping off cages. We got 75-minute matches. We got 2 Cold Scorpio. Everything you could possibly want from early mid-2000s Ring of Honor is here. It's all in one package. So here it is. Unwrap it. What's inside? Oh, it's me. What? I don't know, man. It's the Apron Bump Podcast.
And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
What's up, everybody? What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I, of course, am your host. The hardest part of the ring, Kyle. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Recording this right before a snowstorm. So this may or may not be the last you ever hear from me, but it's been a ride. It's been a ride. Virginia doesn't know how to handle snow, so it's just gonna be chaos and riots in the streets and people buying all the loaves of bread and circumcising their kids. Like it's craziness. As with any storm comes that stuff, but we're braving it. We're braving it. And speaking of braving it, we're about to brave a hot dose of Ring of Honor from August 2004. We got 2 piping hot shows. Piping hot is probably overstating it a little bit. There's kind of some weird shows, really. And we'll talk about it here. But first things first, before you go anywhere, before you listen to another gosh darn second, make sure you're subscribed if you're watching on YouTube. By the way, on YouTube, I'm going to have visual aids in case you want to check her out on the Apron Bump YouTube. Or if you're listening on audio, feel free to give the podcast a 5-star rating, a comment, a review, finger in the belly button, do all those things. At Apron Bump on all the social medias. Join the Discord and all that stuff. You know, just to get that out of the way. So now we can get right into the honorous ring. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the card, or the 2 cards that I'm going to lay out here. So on August 7th, we got Ring of Honor Testing the Limit coming at us from Essington, Pennsylvania in the Ramada Inn. And on August 28th, we got Ring of Honor Scramble Cage Melee coming at us from Braintree, Massachusetts at the National Guard Armory. So we got 2 shows here. You can kind of see the cards. Honestly, and look, we'll get into the details here. Both cards, not incredibly strong from top to bottom. They are both peaked. They're both working towards a main event match, both these cards, which you hear that and you're like, hardest part of the ring. Isn't that what any wrestling show does? Yeah, I got it, right? But I got the feeling, especially like at night 1, like if we're looking at night 1, we got, pure title #1 contenders match. We got Roddy Strong, Izzy. We got some random tag matches, some fatal 4-ways, tag teams, yada, yada, yada. It was a lot. On paper, it might look pretty good, but in actuality, it felt very like they were just kind of waiting for the main event to happen, and we'll see why that is. When we get into it, we'll probably start off with that. But night 1 main evented by a 2 out of 3 falls match between Bryan Danielson and Austin Aries, and then you got night 2, a lot of the same. We got a lot of Special K and Generation Next sprinkled throughout the show. We got a tag team title match, pure title match at night 2. There's a lot. There is some good stuff here, but just weird vibes, just kind of weird vibes from both these shows. And night 2 highlighted, main evented by the Scramble Cage Melee match. I cannot wait to get into that, but equally as eager am I to get, I don't know if that was English. I am equally as eager to get into this. Let's just get right into it, man. Let's just, no lube, no foreplay. Let's just bust it wide open here. Austin Aries versus Bryan Danielson. 2 out of 3 falls. Now, if you've been following the Apron Bump and in this Ring of Honor timeline, which if you have not, the link is in the description if you want to be brought to apronbump.com, where you can see all of the chronological shows that I've covered from the beginning of Ring of Honor and on. But we got Danielson and Aries here. And like I said, if you've been listening, you've kind of been living through the trajectory of both these guys in real time, pretty much. Bryan Danielson is, the first 2 years of Ring of Honor, he's kind of come and gone. He's wrestled a lot in Japan and a lot in England and other places, I'm sure. He hasn't really been a staple of Ring of Honor, really. Maybe like those first few months, but elsewhere, he'll come in, have a classic, and then skedaddle for a few months. And I hope that's not what this is, because I hope he's here to stay. And there's some context clues that make me think this is where we start to stop fucking around with Bryan Danielson. Those context clues being, one, he's bald, which is crucial because early Bryan Danielson, it's just he has like normal white guy hair, like kind of like my hair, just kind of normal short hair, kind of fluffy. And then he would cycle through like the white tights or the blue tights or whatever the hell. But here at Testing the Limit, night 1. By the way, Testing the Limit is night 1. Scramble Cage Melee is night 2. So if I talk night 1 and night 2, that's what I'm referring to, even though they're like a week apart or something. But night 1 and night 2. Night 1, Testing the Limit. Bryan Danielson comes out. Now there's no final countdown yet. We're not quite at his final form, but he's bald, and most importantly, the maroon tights, baby. Come on now, bald maroon D-Bry is in the house, or B Dan, I guess. Might seem like a very superficial detail to a lot of people listening, but this is his debut of this look. And I associate this look to monster Bryan Danielson, the almost arrogant, he knows how good he is. He's started to put it all together. He's a beast. He's the top of the food chain. He is that dude, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. So we're getting there. He's not, champion yet. I think we still got a good ways to go before we get there. But I'm hoping bald William Regal tights Danielson. That aesthetic, I hope that means that he's here to stay and that he's going to be more regular with these Ring of Honor shows. But who's his opponent? Austin Aries. It's very, very fascinating, honestly, because Austin Aries debuted in Ring of Honor only 5 months before this. Like, we talked about it here. He was on like the afternoon show, which if you're not familiar, they do these like, double shot. Sometimes they'll like do 2 shows in a day. That first afternoon show is like the younger guys, the more local, like nobody knows who they are. It's less, there's less focus, it doesn't mean as much. I almost want to compare it to like an NXT, but it's like not even that important. It's just like, let's get some reps in there. Maybe some people will show up. Who cares? Austin Aries, that's where he made his Ring of Honor debut. That was 5 months ago, which is nothing. In those 5 months, he's, joined the Generation Next faction, which is still running hot, which we'll talk more about them as a whole. But he's joined this faction. He's been in big time matches. And then he walked into the Survival of the Fittest match. I believe, was it last month or 2 months ago? I covered this in a previous episode, but he had a standout performance there. It was 6 guys. It's elimination. And him, Austin Aries, and Bryan Danielson were the final 2 guys in that match. And they went on, there were 6 guys that started, and it weeded itself down to just those 2. But once it was just those 2, it went on like 20 minutes, 25 minutes after that. So they had a full-on match after all those eliminations, and it was a fucking classic. So that's kind of what has set the scene for this match. It's a match that caught the eye of a lot of people, and it was very highly acclaimed. So they thought, let's just have these two one-on-one, no bullshit. 2 out of 3 falls. Let's just add that on top of it, and let's see who's truly the better man. Because I think at that point, Bryan Danielson came out on top. Will he do it again, or will Austin Aries come out on top here? Well, we'll just have to find out, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, 2 out of 3 falls, and I will make a note here, right? These Ring of Honor shows are typically about 3 hours, usually like exactly 3 hours, give or take like 30 seconds or so. And this one was as well, testing the limit, 3 hours long. This main event, the entrances started with 1 hour and 20 minutes left. And I thought, oh boy, we're in for a fucking marathon here. I wasn't sure if this was like a long match, or maybe they had like a normal match and then they showed like highlights after. Maybe there was like a segment or two after this. I knew this was the last match, and there was 1 hour and 20 minutes left. So that set the scene, and spoiler alert, they used all of those seconds that they had, because my goodness, we're going to get into the details here, but this match was tremendous. And not all matches, like matches aren't better just because they're long. Like there's plenty of long matches that are dog shit. Like the what was it, Final Battle 02, there was like a fatal 4-way that went like 45 minutes to 1 hour, and it was just boring, stupid. Like, who cares? What are some other long, like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 12? A lot of people think that was just a boring match. But here, Bryan Danielson, Austin Aries, they did a great job at pacing this match. It wasn't perfect, which again, we'll get into, but they had different beats, different milestones they were working to. And similar to the CM Punk Samoa Joe match that I recently covered, which went 60 minutes, they didn't have an egregious use of finishing moves, special moves, high flying, high impact, like crazy spots. It was very methodical in how they laid this out. Let's just get right into it. So, match gets underway, and it's a slow pace in the beginning, chain wrestling, feeling out process, and you can just tell by the pace and in the outset that, okay, this is going to be a long match. Just setting the foundation here. So Bryan Danielson, he's getting the advantage on a lot of the chain wrestling, and I noted here, I think this is the first I have till 5 referee, which would go on to be his thing. He still does it today. Because Danielson, he's like fish hooking Aries. He has like an STF on Austin, and he's fish hooking him by like the nose and the mouth, and then the ref counts him, and he's like, I have till 5 referee, which is just, it eventually catches on, and the crowd chants it with them. But I think this is the first time we see it, so that was cool. The match is continuing, and we get a call from the ring announcer that there are 45 minutes left in the fall, which I thought is a weird, like, a little early for making a time limit call, but whatever. By the way, I should note that this is 2 out of 3 falls, and they make it clear that each fall has a 60-minute time limit, so it could go 3 hours with that. But the match keeps going. Not a lot of high impact stuff here in this first like 20 minutes or so, but Austin Aries gets hit with a second rope gut buster from Bryan, and then Bryan follows it up with a hot shot on the top rope. So he's starting to target the midsection, and we see an abdominal stretch by Bryan Danielson with the ropes leverage. I mean, if you know me, if you know one thing about the hardest part of the ring, I adore an abdominal stretch with the ropes. You know the deal, right? They got the stretch on, referees on the opposite side of you. You grab the ropes behind you to get a little extra, and then the ref like walks around and he's like, were you just grabbing those ropes? And the guy's like, no, not me. And then the ref, waddles over and then checks the guy again. Then he grabs the, the deal, right? We've all seen this. And that's just kind of like a representation of what I loved about this match, is that Bryan Danielson in particular does the basic things so well. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's better to be extraordinary at the basics than have a basic understanding of the extraordinary. And that applies to everything. That's just how I think. But Bryan shows us off right here. Like I said, he's throwing out abdominal stretches, body slams, bro, scoop slams. He does like 3 or 4 or 5 scoop slams in a row on Austin Aries, and each one looks like he's trying to put this guy through the mat. They're like legitimate. Like, if you would have pinned him after this body slam, I would have been like, all right, that makes sense. And that's just a testament to all the work that was done to kind of lay that foundation in. Suplex onto the rope, like these run-of-the-mill spots that we're all accustomed to seeing, but they all look so vicious when Bryan does it. And Bryan's kind of leaning into being a heel, I would guess, which is interesting because Generation Next is a heel faction, which Austin Aries is a part of. But this match is very much framed as if Austin was the babyface and Bryan was the heel. But I think that's more a testament to just Bryan. Bryan's like the heel monster of this match. Even he's not like a huge dude, but he's just dominating Austin for a lot of this match. In the beginning, he has a chin lock on him. The crowd starts clapping for Austin. And then Bryan's like, stop that clapping. It's just his like delivery is just so funny, dude. Austin fights out of like a torture rack from Bryan, backdrops Bryan out to the outside and hits a corkscrew plancha. And this is like Austin's first like real burst of significant offense. And we're probably like 30, 40 minutes into this. Gets Bryan back into the ring. Now he has control, but Bryan cuts him off. An airplane spin. So let's abdominal stretch, body slam, airplane spin. I mean, we're just racking up all of the classics here. All of the Haystack Calhoun classics. Bryan hits a Finley roll onto Aries, a diving headbutt. Or he goes for a diving headbutt off the top rope, but Aries gets out of the way. And that's a lot of this match. Is like Bryan has control for long periods of time. But then Aries has these like bursts of energy where he starts to come back. But usually Bryan cuts him off. But here, Aries comes back, gets Bryan in a small package. 1-2 kick out. Bryan tries to stop him, tries to go for a suplex, but Aries counters into like a spinning fisherman neck breaker for a 2 count. Aries goes to the top rope, moonsaults, lands behind Bryan, and then, and then rolls him up. A moonsault schoolboy. Where have we ever seen this? It's insane. But Bryan, kind of quells the momentum a little bit, gets Aries up there, goes for a superplex. They're both standing on the top rope. Crowd chants, please don't die. And Bryan yells to the crowd, I don't give a fuck if I die or not. And then he hits the superplex, which is so gangster. So unbelievably gangster. Hits it. Goes for the pin. It's a 2 count. So now we're like 45 minutes in or something, 50 minutes in maybe. Both guys are getting a little desperate. We're going for roll-ups, counters of roll-ups, 2 counts, 2 counts, 2 counts. And then Austin Aries gets Bryan into a crucifix pin, but then rolls through right into a Rings of Saturn. Bryan fights out of it, but then Aries transitions into the cattle mutilation, which is Bryan's move. And Bryan Danielson taps out to his own cattle mutilation, which shocked me. I did not see that coming. I figured Austin would get at least a win here, but tapping out Bryan Danielson to the cattle mutilation is insane. I mean, how many people have done that? Can't be much, right? So Austin Aries gets the first, and that's just the first fall out of 3. So Austin's up 1-0. But that first fall was probably the most significant, at least in terms of time. A lot of good false finishes towards the end. High energy, I like it. But then now we move on to the second fall. There's a 30-second rest period. And we're right back at it. So fall 2 starts with Austin Aries going to the top rope, but Bryan shoves Aries off of the top rope to the floor. Bryan begins to target the knee of Austin Aries with brutal leg breakers against the ring post. There's one point where Aries is kind of like crouched along the ring post, and Danielson takes his ankle and just tosses it into the post. And the ankle specifically, the fact that it was just the way he grabbed it, there was so much like malice behind it. It was just insane. Bryan locks in a single leg crab in the ring and transitions into like a crazy figure four Indian deathlock deal. I don't even know what you call it. Bridges it. So think of like a figure four. It's almost like a figure eight. It's almost like Charlotte's figure eight, but better. You know what? Let me bring it up here. Let's work through it together. Let's figure out what the hell was even happening here. All right, so Bryan's got him in an Indian deathlock here. Kind of similar to a figure four, but more pressure on the, he's kind of pushing his foot against Aries' knee. Now he's on top of him, but he's still tied up. I mean, just look at how Bryan, he's just looking over him. He just looks so fucking dominant right now, even though he's down 0-1. Now he stands up, but still has the legs grapevine somehow. And then what does he do here? Playing to the crowd. He knows he's good. He's not rushing into it. He's asking the crowd if he should do it. Well, but what is he gonna do? Oh my goodness, he bridges back. Jeez Louise. You think he's just gonna like fall back or something, but he just twerks it to the umpteenth degree. Look at this. He might pin Aries doing this. I mean, what does he even do? And then he turns around. What the fuck? He's got him in like a Texas cloverleaf with one foot. Almost. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't know the science behind this. I don't even know if it necessarily makes sense, but it looks devastating, which I guess is what matters, right? And then he makes it to the ropes, and now we got a break. But geez, that's just a representation of how good Bryan Danielson is, man. Hooey. So we're still in the midst of fall 2. Aries' leg is getting worked on. Bryan has control. Aries goes to the outside. Bryan goes for a suicide dive to the outside, but Austin Aries moves out of the way, and Danielson goes head first into the floor, or at least that's what they're trying to portray. I don't know if that's necessarily what happened, but which is a big moment in the match here. So he goes head because Bryan was in control, takes a header into the concrete floor, and now is he concussed? Is he knocked out? We don't know. And Aries is getting frustrated with the ref. He's like, there's no countouts here? That's a bunch of malarkey, is what he says. In no uncertain terms. Because Aries, look, his legs fucked up. They're like over an hour into the match, I think, at this point. He's dead weight. I can't, what am I going to lift him up? What, are we going to leave him there all night? What are we doing here? Just give me the win. And Aries, instead of picking him up, decides to go to the top rope. Elbow drop to the floor from the top rope onto Bryan Danielson. Jeez, man. Yikes. Brutal stuff. They eventually get back in the ring. Aries does like a corkscrew splash over the rope. Then hits a line salt onto Bryan, but only gets a 2 count. So Bryan is still at least somewhat awake, not completely knocked out. And then Bryan starts fighting back. He starts to regain control a little bit. CM Punk, who is on commentary, makes a very funny but interesting point in that he's suggesting that Bryan's head injury here might have made him forget what body part he was working on. Because Bryan was working on the midsection and the back of Aries throughout the entire match and the legs. But now Bryan starts working the arm. So I don't know if that was like an effort that Bryan made to like, portray that head injury, or if that's just what happened. But just a funny little tidbit there. And Bryan goes for the cattle mutilation himself, gets it locked in, but Austin Aries does not tap out. So Bryan transitions into a crucifix pin for the 1, 2, 3. So he just gets the quick pinfall out of nowhere, countering out of this cattle mutilation. So we are all knotted up here, boys and girls. 1-1, 1 fall apiece. Next fall wins. So we move on to the third fall, the third and final fall, which, by the way, they both get a water break. And CM Punk on commentary is pissed because him and Joe didn't get any water breaks in their 16-minute match. Punk says that he wants water breaks and a fruit plate next time, which is, it's the least the guy could get. But the third fall gets underway. Bryan's aggressive. He's beating on Aries in the corner, sets him up for a superplex. But Aries counters into a DDT off the top rope to the mat. Bryan fights back. And this is the point where he's just planting him with body slam after body slam. Like, Bryan will hit these body slams and he can like barely stand. That's just how much effort, that's how much force he's putting behind these slams. He goes for another body slam, but Austin Aries counters into a small package. 1, 2, kick out. Whew. Good drama here at the end. Bryan locks in a bear hug. Abdominal stretch, airplane spin, bear hug, scoop slams. He's breaking out all the classics. Aries counters this bear hug into one of his own. Bryan counters this into what I can only describe as a bear hug Boston Crab, which is how he beat Austin Aries at their survival of the fittest match. But Aries fights out of this, hits Bryan with an overhead suplex, sets Bryan on the top rope, but Bryan fights back and hits a back suplex on Aries off the top rope. 2 count, locks in the cattle mutilation, but Austin Aries gets his foot on the rope. So now we're throwing out the big bombs in this match. Aries fights back, goes for the 450, but the ceiling, which is, it'll come up later in the show as well. This night 1 show in, where are they at? Pennsylvania somewhere. The ceiling is like super low and there's like chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. So it like gets in the way of some of the high flying stuff. But Aries goes for the 450. Bryan gets out of the way and Aries like jams his leg a little bit because he can't get the full rotation. And it's at this point, like we're maybe 70 minutes into this match. Forearm, back and forth, middle of the ring. And this is not like a modern day forearm trade segment where they're going for the yay, boo. It's not that trope you see in every match nowadays. This is like they're hitting each other. The guy bounces off the ropes, comes back, hits the guy. The other guy bounces off the ropes, comes back. They meet in the middle. This is like a struggle. This feels like a struggle here. Aries is able to get Bryan on the top rope. After all those last-ditch efforts, he gets Bryan on the top rope, hits a brain buster from the top rope to the mat. 1, 2, kick out. Whew. I for sure thought that was it. But Bryan kicks out. Aries, frustrated, hits him with another brain buster, hits him with a third brain buster, goes to the top rope. He missed the 450 earlier, but he's going to try it again. 450. Hits it perfectly, even with the low ceiling. 1, 2, 3. Austin Aries gets the win. 75 minutes. Jeez, on toast. This was awesome. This match was awesome. It was the bulk of the first night. This one match, but I dare say maybe it was worth it. And the show closes out with huge ROH chants. So you have that epic match, the crowd's into it, which is it's a challenge to keep the crowd engaged for that long. But it seemed to get over pretty well. And speaking of getting over well, goddamn, Austin Aries just beat Bryan Danielson pretty handedly. Not handedly, but like, there's no question about it. Aries is a fucking star here. Only 5 months after his debut, which is crazy. Bryan Danielson's Bryan Danielson. He's not. He's fine. I have a feeling he'll be back and he'll be fine. But incredible match. Maybe I don't know if I liked this match more than Joe and Punk. I think some of the middle parts of this match kind of dragged a little bit. It's like at a certain point, it's like, all right, I get it, Brian. You're working the back. I get it. You know what I mean? So, but it built up really well and it culminated into a pretty cool moment here. So, big thumbs up all around for Brian Danielson, Austin Aries, testing the limit. Whew, man, I'm exhausted. I need a water break and a fruit plate after that. That just has me all hot and bothered. Pants are a little tighter after that one. But while we're talking Austin Aries, we might as well wrap it up with the other Generation Next stuff. So if you're unfamiliar with Generation Next, I've talked a lot about them in the past, 1 or 2 shows. They're a new faction that has arisen in Ring of Honor. A new faction. They've probably been around for like 3 or 4 months, but it is Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, Jack Evans, Roderick Strong. 4 guys. All were like relatively unknown when they came together, but they've made an impact. And we just talked about Aries and the impact that he left on night 1. But the even crazier thing is that all 4 of these guys came out of this month looking like stars. All 4 of them. While yes, the bulk of it was Danielson and Aries. There was other stuff on night 1, notably a 4-corner survival match. Jay Lethal versus Alex Shelley versus Ace Steel versus 2 Cold Scorpio. I don't know why 2 Colds here, but I'm all for the Flash Funk. You're never going to get a complaint from me. So the match itself is honestly pretty unspectacular. It was cool to see 2 Cold Scorpio, but like, I don't know, man. This match didn't really move me too much. But Alex Shelley wins with a shell shock to Jay Lethal. So Shelley pins Jay Lethal for the win here. Because after the match, Shelley gets on the mic and kind of just shits on everybody. He calls Scorpio old. He says that Ace Steel has a goofy looking face, which he does. But he's running on about his opponents here after he beat him. And Jay then grabs the mic and he challenges Alex Shelley to a 1-on-1 match at the next show, in which Shelley accepts. Which we'll get into here. But Scorpio again is like whatever, is 2 Cold Scorpio. He puts over Jay Lethal after the match. Puts over Ring of Honor, I guess. You could tell he didn't really give a shit, but it was whatever. It was kind of funny. Him and Jay Lethal dance. It was a silly time. Nothing really offensively bad there. But night 2, we move on to Jay Lethal versus Alex Shelley, 1-on-1. Again, weird match. Nothing that knocked my britches off per se. This was a really weird one because it was like Jay Lethal. They're like, he's getting a lot of spotlight here. He's broken off from Special K. He's no longer Hydro. Samoa Joe has had a few segments with him backstage being like, yo, Jay, I know you're better than this Special K stuff. I know you're talented. Show the world what you can do. And then he loses that 4-way match. And now he's here. And you'd think, oh, maybe he gets his redemption. But no, this match is like 99% Alex Shelley. Like he's just kicking the shit out of Jay Lethal for, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Dragon screws, leg submissions. She's kicking the shit out of Jay's leg. Shin breakers on the apron. Shin breaker off the second rope. It's like a wrestling. It's like when you're playing a wrestling game and it's like 2 players. Like you have 2 controllers, but it's just you. So you're just like basically you're working a punching bag. This is kind of what this felt like. Jay wasn't getting any offense in this. It was pretty bizarre. I guess towards the end, they kind of start going back and forth with like roll-ups and stuff. I think Jay gets like a dragon suplex in there at some point. But I mean, the amount of moves he did was less than 5. It had to have been. And Alex Shelley ends up getting the win again with a schoolboy with the legs, grapevine. I don't know, man. I think Jay Lethal just looked like a fucking Jamoke here. But Alex Shelley, we're keeping with the Generation Next theme. Let's keep the tally up. We got Aries beat Danielson. Now, Alex Shelley has won 2 matches this month, 2-0. So as of right now, Generation X is 3-0 this month. And it just keeps going. And it just keeps coming, and it just keeps coming. We got night 2. We got some back-to-back singles matches here. Nothing really, we don't really need to get into the weeds of the matches themselves. They weren't anything like that you need to go out of your way and see. But we got Roderick Strong versus Ace Steel on night 2. Of course, Roddy's working the back of Ace, the backbreakers, etc., etc. Even at this point, they're calling him the Messiah of the backbreaker. Chops. There's actually one moment where Roddy's giving Ace Steel some like pretty brutal chops. He's chopping Ace, and commentary. So commentary for this night was Gabe Sapolsky and Mark Nolte. Roddy chops Ace Steel, and Gabe's like, does anybody chop harder than Roderick Strong? And then there's a slight pause, and then Mark Nolte's like, it's Samoa Joe. It's a rhetorical question, you asshole. It's just like, does anybody chop hard? Man, God. Does anybody chop harder than this guy? And Mark Nolte, fucking literal Lucy over here. Mark Nolte is like, Samoa Joe might chop harder. I don't know. So what, we just fucking burying Roddy Strong here for no reason? I don't know, this fucking idiot. And Gabe was even like, he was like, that was a rhetorical question, Mark. Stupid ass. But this is actually, I think this is, I could be wrong. This is Generation Next, their only loss this month. Because Ace Steel wins with like a butterfly suplex into an armbar, and Roddy taps out. It was very surprising. So Ace Steel gets the win here, but Generation Next jumps Ace after the bell, beats him down. But Colt Cabana comes out, a Second City Saint member of Ace Steel, because the Second City Saints are Colt Cabana, CM Punk, and Ace Steel. Colt comes out, gives bionic elbows to every member of Generation Next, and challenges Austin Aries to a match right now, brother. Keep in mind, this is the week after the Aries and Danielson match. So Colt Cabana versus Austin Aries is a match that happens. Colt's being a bit of a silly goose in the beginning. By the way, this is like a week or two after Rick James passed away. So Colt comes out to super freak. He's wearing like the Rick James glasses as he's wrestling. He's trying to get in the head of Aries here in the beginning. Just a stark contrast of the Danielson match. But he's locking in these like roll-ups and crazy submissions, and Aries is finding himself stuck in like paradise locks and things like that. Colt has control of this match at some point. Goes for an elbow drop off the top rope, but Aries gets out of the way and hits him with a brainbuster for a 2 count. Colt begins to try to recover, and he fights back. He hits the ropes. But Jack Evans grabs the ankle of Colt Cabana, distracts him. And this is where Austin Aries locks in a crucifix into the rings of Saturn, and Colt Cabana passes out. So Austin Aries beats Colt Cabana via submission. What ended up being like a pretty good match. Like there was a point where they were fighting on the outside, and Colt goes into the barricade and he's busted open. So it started off kind of silly, but it ramped up in intensity as the match went on. And it keeps on going, because after the match, Generation Next beats down on Colt Cabana. They put a chair under Colt's arm and another chair on top of his arm, and Austin Aries comes off the top with a 450 onto this chair sandwich, crushing the arm of Colt Cabana. So there's still some bad blood between Generation Next and Second City Saints, because if you remember, at the street fight on the last Ring of Honor podcast I did the last month, the Second City Saints won a street fight in the main event, and then Generation Next came out after the match and then beat down the Saints. And that's kind of where we left off at the last episode. So now we got this Generation Next Second City Saints feud continuing to brew here. Punk grabs the mic. He says, "You think you and your midget circus are so badass? Why don't you come in this ring and I'll send you back to Jeff Jarrett's pocket?" Which I guess they're all working in TNA at this point, but isn't Punk also? I don't know. But so that's where we're at there. But Austin Aries gets the win and continues the hot streak of Generation Next. And then also Roger Strong, he beat Izzy on the first night. I think it was one of the Special K guys. He just kicks the shit out of this poor boy. Wins with the Widow's Peak. So, what is that? 5-0 or 5-1, I guess. So you got Aries wins the match with Danielson. Shelley gets 2 wins. Roddy gets that 1 win. And Aries gets a 2nd win. So 5-1, because Roddy lost the match to Ace Steel. So Generation Next is 5-1, which just being that showcased where you have that many matches is saying a lot in and itself. But the fact that they're winning almost all of these matches says a lot. And you may be thinking, well, what about the 4th member of Generation Next, Jack Evans. We're going to close this show out with him. Don't you worry. We'll get to him. We're just going to have to wait just a tad, because that's just fucking crazy. But speaking of crazy, we'll transition from Generation Next talk into championships. This month, August 2004, we got not one, but two title changes. Whew. Let's get into it. First of all, we have on night one, the Ring of Honor tag team titles on the line. The champions, the Second City Saints, taking on the Havana Pitbulls, the team of Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero. Whew. So the Pitbulls, also a member of the Rottweilers. It gets a bit confusing because as a tag team, Reyes and Romero, they are the Havana Pitbulls, but they're a part of a bigger faction, the Rottweilers, which are those two, along with Homicide, Low Key, and Julius Smokes. So Saints and Pitbulls, honestly, the match itself is like, again, it's a running theme here. It's like night one, which is still night one. A lot of the matches felt like they were just like filling time to get to the main event, which was the bulk of the show. But it's crazy because this is a pretty significant match because, the match is going on. By the way, Gabe on commentary says he's mentioning how CM Punk is the head trainer at the Ring of Honor dojo. He's plugging the school and whatnot. But as soon as he says this, CM Punk proceeds to botch 2 surfboards in a row. One, he just over rotates and Rocky goes like flying over him. And then the second time he tries it, he like loses the legs. It's just like, the timing of it was comical. But again, the match is fine. Rocky Romero sticks out to me in this one. I love the way he jumps into arm bars, the flying arm bars that he does. It's something I'm surprised we don't see more of in pro wrestling. It's just such a cool visual. Rocky, he's leaping into these arm bars, working the arm of CM Punk. Has Punk dead to rights, but Colt saves him with the frog splash. I love the finish of this match, actually. So Rocky is trying to roll up Colt Cabana into a small package. But CM Punk holds Colt's arm to prevent Colt from getting rolled up. Rocky's pulling him, but Punk's got his arm. He's not letting Colt go. But then Ricky Reyes comes in, takes out CM Punk with a kick. This, of course, releases the grip Punk had on Colt. So Colt falls into this small package. And Rocky gets the 1, 2, 3 new tag team champions, the Havana Pitbulls, Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero. So the Rottweilers got some gold here, new tag team champions, which I do like. I feel like Colt and Punk felt like, I don't want to say they were holding the tag division hostage because they have been doing some good stuff with it, but there's like other teams. Colt and Punk are like 2 individual guys that are doing individual things, and they just happen to be the tag team champions. Put the title on the Pitbulls, and then have them have matches with the Briscoes and what other Special Ks and other teams, right? Speaking of Special K, the Havana Pitbulls, they win the title night 1. Night 2, they defend the titles against Special K. Pretty like competitive match. I would honestly put this match, I would say this match was better than the CM Punk Colt Cabana match, which is crazy. Special K, I mean, they've been kind of in the background for a while. They've been on a losing streak ever since that guy got pile driven off the top of the cage. They've been down in the dumps. They've what was the phrasing? The party's over with Special K. They've been depressed. They're not their high energy selves. They're not doing any drugs even, I don't think. They're just moping around. But when the bell rings, they're serious. And I think serious Special K might be the key to making them awesome, because this match with the Pitbulls was great. I mean, a bunch of like high flying corkscrew fucking whatever the hell is off the top rope, sliced breads, sheer nuis, all these like a few power bomb type things from Special K. The Havana Pitbulls were on the back step for a lot of this match. But the Havanas eventually win with a pendulum backbreaker flying knee drop combination. So the Pit Bulls get the win, but a pretty competitive match with Special K. Shout out to those guys. And there's just like civil war going on with Special K, which I'm not even gonna bother. Like, I still don't really totally know who's who in Special K. They're all like white guys that are scrawny, wearing baggy shorts and bandanas, and where, you know, it's who cares, right? If that progresses to anything significant, we'll touch more on it. But there seems to be like a new girlfriend in the group that's kind of the Yoko Ono of the situation, and now we got like Special K and Special K Wolfpack. I don't know, man. Is something to keep an eye on, I guess, but I couldn't really honestly follow who was aligned with who, and I didn't really care enough to research further. But tag team championships have changed hands, and there's another title that changed hands, and that is, of course, the Pure title. Current champion Doug Williams, but he does not walk out of this month as Pure champion. We find it because he defends the title in night 2. Night 1, there's a Pure title #1 contenders match between John Walters and Nigel McGuinness. A match that I had high hopes for, but it was the opening match. It was pretty quick, whatever. John Walters eventually gets the win over Nigel with a roll-up, I believe, or something along those lines. Pretty fun match, but I think they had a lot more in the tank. But whatever the case is, John Walters walks out the winner, and he goes into night 2 to face Doug Williams for the Pure title, of course. Pure title rules: you only get 3 rope breaks, and afterwards you can just get locked up in the ropes, and the ropes don't save you anymore. There's no closed fists to the head, and a 20-second count out on the outside. I think those are the rules. So the match is about to get underway. It's Doug Williams versus John Walters for the Pure title. But before the match gets underway, Samoa Joe comes out, who is the Ring of Honor World Champion. I don't know if I agree with this. He comes out. He has the mic. He's looking at Doug Williams, and he's like, just because you're defending your title, just because you have been successfully defending your title over the past few months, your title still doesn't mean shit. Word for word quote from Joey Samoa. Because he hates titles. He hates the fact that there's other titles to fight for in Ring of Honor. The only title that matters is the title that Samoa Joe holds in his head. I get it in kayfabe, right? I get Joe. He wants to be the one champion, the one true king, all that stuff, right? But man, right before the Pure title match, you're just gonna cut it off at the knees? Like, I don't know, man. Your title doesn't mean shit. Okay, here's a title match. Like, I don't know, man. I think this could have been just like produced better. Maybe like after the match, or like, I guess it wouldn't have made. We'll talk about why that wouldn't have made sense, but whatever. Doug Walters, good old-fashioned Pure wrestling match. The rope break rule has been a key point in these Pure rules matches, but both these guys pretty much utilize all of their rope breaks pretty much right away, like within the first 5 minutes, which I get. I think the idea is that each guy is intending to lock in submissions close to the ropes, so that the other guy has to grab the ropes. I think that's the idea, but it kind of came off like they were lazy and they didn't try to fight out of the submissions without the ropes. They would just kind of be like, oh, I guess the rope's here, I'll grab it. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Both guys now have no rope breaks to use. There's a great sequence here where Doug goes to the top rope to go for his flying knee drop, but Walters crotches him on the top rope. Hits a drop kick from the mat to the top rope. John Walters hits him with an avalanche Frankensteiner, but Doug Williams rolls through it into a roll-up pin, but then John Walters counters into a figure 4. He tries to, but then Doug Williams counters out of this into a small package, so that it heated up at that point. Walters hits a lung blower, then a backstabber for a 2 count. Doug goes for the chaos theory and hits it, but his leg had been worked on by Walters the entire match. So Doug hits this German suplex, but he can only bridge with one leg, so he can only get a 2 count out of it. Great psychology there. And Doug Williams ends up getting tossed over the top rope, but he tries to skin the cat back into the ring. But Walters catches him as he's hanging upside down in some sort of leg lock in the ropes, because remember, he has no more rope breaks to use. So Walters has this leg lock on Doug Williams while he's tied up in the ropes, upside down, and Doug has no choice but to tap out. New pure champion, John Walters. And I've talked a lot about John Walters, man. When he was first introduced, I was like, who's this fucking, creative wrestler number 7 guy? Just, lanky, white guy, obviously likes Chris Benoit. He patterns his whole look around him. But John Walters says he's made a fan out of me. His matches with Xavier, all these pure matches he's had, they've been great for the most part. Matches with Matt Stryker and all that's big fan of John Walters. It was cool to see him be crowned as the pure champion here. He's in his hometown, by the way, during this match. So the crowd actually goes ape shit for him, which is crazy to see. But yeah, and it's also a stick. By the way, I forgot to mention this when Samoa Joe was cutting the promo earlier. He was talking shit about Doug Williams and his title, but he also turned to John Walters and he was like, hey, I know you're here in your hometown of Boston, but try not to choke like everyone else does in this town, which he's referring to the Boston Red Sox, of course, which is funny because I believe this is the year, 2004, where they finally break the curse and win the World Series. So it's kind of funny how he made that comment, only for John Walters to proceed to not choke, win the title the same year that the Red Sox won. I thought it was very apropos how it all played out. So, pretty good match. Like I said, once the match became fun once the rope break thing stopped becoming the focus. Like the first 10 minutes is each guy trying to get the guy to lose his rope breaks. So it was kind of tedious in the beginning, but that ending stretch there was pretty awesome. So props to John Walters, new pure champion. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. What next? Oh, while we're talking titles, let's wrap it up here. Last title match. It's a world title match. Samoa Joe, Trent Acid. So Trent Acid he's been kind of being built up the past month or so. I don't know if it's been various things. He's been winning random scramble multi-man matches. He's been beating your, I don't know, Sanjay Dutts of the world and your Deliriouses and your Jimmy Jacobs. Those type guys he's been beating. He even lost a match to Jimmy Rave, I believe, right? So, but he has a world title match here on night 1. And it's a clip montage for the world title match. It's not the full match. It's just some clips of it. And you know why? It's because Trent Acid injured his ankle in the beginning of the match. Allegedly. So they show the clips. They show where he allegedly hurt his ankle on a Hurricane Rana to the outside. So he hops over the top rope, catches Joe on the floor, hits him with a Rana. And then apparently he smacks his ankle on the floor and that injures his ankle, which sounds kind of fishy to me. That doesn't sound like a real thing. I could see, I guess it could happen. I don't know, man. The clips they showed, it didn't seem like his ankle was that injured. And then he's wrestling the next week in a cage. But I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm an asshole. But Trent, he was injured and Gabe on commentary is doing commentary throughout these clips. He says they can't show the match due to time constraints, what fucking constraints do you have? It's on DVD. Make it 2 discs, asshole. Whatever. So Trent Acid, Joe, it was the world title match, but it ended up not really being a match at all. And Joe wins with the Island Driver. I'm not sure how long it was, but Gabe kind of buries Trent Acid on commentary. He's like, lesson here, folks, is if you're going to wrestle, tape up your ankle and wear wrestling gear, which is Trent at this point. He's wrestling in jorts and sneakers, which I don't know. Fuck him, I guess. But that's pretty unfortunate. That could have been a fun match, but was none to be. So we only have a few more things really to touch upon here. We'll talk about the Scramble Cage match here as the main event of this podcast, as it was the main event of night 2. But one thing before that we got to touch on. We talked a little bit about the Rottweilers and the Havana Pitbulls winning the tag team titles, but there is some more meat on the bone for these dogs to chew. There's something there.
So night one. Again, this is the same night where the Havana Pitbulls won the tag team titles. On the same night, you have another tag team match. We have Homicide and Low Key, members of the Rottweilers, taking on the Briscoes, Jay and Mark, of course. So to kind of recap where we're at in this story. So they had a 6-man tag. This is when Low Key came back and and aligned with the Rottweilers. It was a 6-man tag. I think it was Homicide and the Havana Pitbulls versus Samoa Joe and the Briscoes. Pretty good match. During this match, Mark Briscoe got a fireball in the face from Homicide. They've also been kind of going back and forth for the past few months. There was one point where Homicide knocked out Jay Briscoe with a lariat, then proceeded to beat on him after the match. Then Mark came out, and then they had a scuffle. There's been various brawls between the two, post-match, beatdowns, back and forth, just kind of shitting on each other. So now we have a match between these two teams. Kind of just like a traditional tag team match. You see this lineup. Homicide and Low Key versus the Briscoes. That should be a 5-star main event classic in any arena. But this one really kind of leans on like the Rottweilers just kind of like being the shithead heels that they are. You got Low Key being very methodical. Like he's very high energy usually, but this new kind of side of him is very just stalking, and he's doing these cocky pins and, like flexing his muscles, that kind of stuff. Mark's getting his ass kicked in this match. But Jay gets the hot tag at some point, beating on everybody, but Low Key's able to counter, locks in the Dragon Sleeper on Jay, but Jay counters out of this and hits the Jay Driller, or goes for the Jay Driller, but Low Key fights out of it. And it's at this point where I'm like, the grittiness of this match was fun, because not a lot of this match was like pretty, but if it was very stiff, this match was. It was very stiff. There was actually one point where it was like comical. Which we'll talk about here in a second. But Mark at some point goes to the top rope, but Homicide shoves Mark off the top rope into a chandelier that's hanging from the ceiling. And I brought up earlier how in night one it was a very low ceiling. They took advantage of this. Homicide just tosses Mark into the ceiling, basically. Homicide follows this up, goes for a lariat onto Jay, but Jay counters and hits the Jay Driller, but he can't capitalize. Also, Low Key's a legal guy, so it doesn't matter. Key goes for the Key Crusher onto Jay. Jay fights out of it, and Low Key hits him with this knee to the head. That was just like, what are we doing? Here, let me pull this up real quick. So I got this up here. So Key's going for the Key Crusher. Jay fights out of it. Key hits him with a Mongolian chop. And then it's just like a shitty little knee after it, which it wasn't like the highlight spot of the thing, but you can tell he just really hits him for real, and Jay gets pissed off. Watch this. Fights out of it, Mongolian chop. Look at this knee. It's just a shitty little knee, but just, I don't know, man. Then he gets him in a small package, I think, here, and gets the win, right? So the Briscoes get the win after this small package. But it's at some point, I think it's right after, Low Key kicks the fuck out of Jay's head. Look at this. Which is significant. Low Key's first pinfall loss since 2002. So, of course, Key's pissed. Julius is pissed. Homicide's pissed. The Rottweilers are pissed. Briscoes win. Look out for this kick from Low Key here. God damn, dude! What the fuck? Low Key is such a fucking dick, dude. This is why Low Key is not a bigger deal in the wrestling world. It's because of shit like this. Look at this. Look at this. God damn, Randy Orton, eat your heart out. But, so that's where we're at. And then what proceeds to happen? So after that kick, Briscoes win, Low Key gets him with that kick. We get maybe the best post-match brawl pull-apart deal that I've ever seen. This was so sick. It just felt so organic and natural. Because you got obviously the Briscoes going at it with Homicide and Low Key. Julius Smokes is in there trying to get after the Briscoes. Samoa Joe comes out to defend the Briscoes, and he still has bad blood with Homicide and Low Key. They spit on his title. They spit on him. Fireballs. A lot of bad blood. The whole locker room comes out. Punk comes out. The Carnage crew. Everybody comes out. And this brawl lasts for a while. I don't know, man. There's some heat between the two teams. Maybe not. But Low Key, nobody likes Low Key. Low Key's down to scrap. He doesn't care. He's not working these punches. He's just going after these guys. Homicide's a shady fella as well. Samoa Joe, you kidding me? He slips in a punch on Low Key that I think fucking cracked his jaw. Awesome stuff, man. The way they are just fighting through everybody to, everybody's trying to keep them apart, but they're fighting through. They fight through the curtain and they end up pulling the whole goddamn curtain down. You never see that. The visual of that was crazy. They fight into the parking lot. The camera follows him into the parking lot. It's a quiet parking lot, so you can hear the slaps and the yelling and all that. Joe at one point yells at him, "I'll put you on the fucking ground." It's I don't want Samoa Joe yelling that at me. But oh man, we got this Homicide. The Rottweilers are these thugs, I guess. Still got heat with the Briscoes, and Samoa Joe is still in the picture as well. And that kind of carries over into night 2, where we got a triple threat match. Non-title. Samoa Joe versus Homicide versus CM Punk. So, seeing this on the card, like I said, it's non-title, and they're building this up as this match is to determine who the true icon of Ring of Honor is, which is fucking cares, dude. But obviously 3 talented dudes. But it feels like we're just forcing it a little bit here. No? Maybe I'm thinking too much into it. Because Punk and Joe, they had their first match, the 60-minute draw, so there's still unsettled business there. I would prefer they didn't touch until they had their rematch, one-on-one for the title. But here we're kind of diluting that feud a little bit. Joe and Homicide, we've wrung this fucking towel dry as it can get. How many title matches has Homicide gotten against Joe? At least 4 or 5. They've done, street fights, unsanctioned matches, there's blood, there's fire, there's forks. What else can you do? Punk and Homicide don't necessarily have beef with each other, but I don't know. It felt like there's good stories in here. But this is not the most efficient way to capitalize on those stories, if that makes any sense. It's a good match. Look, it's a triple threat match, so it's pretty chaotic by nature. There's a lot of fighting on the outside. There's Olay kicks. A fork gets brought into play because it's a Homicide match, so of course it does. But Joe confiscates this fork and just jams Homicide in the head with it. So there's a lot of blood in this match. There's a lot of brutality. Joe hits Homicide with a suicide dive and Olay kicks. So Homicide's his face is bloody. Joe goes for the Olay kick on Punk, but Punk gets out of the way and he doesn't go after Joe. He just lets Joe kind of take himself out, and then he goes after the bloody Homicide himself. Punk does. And there's a spot here where Homicide's about to pile driver. He's about to pile drive CM Punk off of the apron through the ringside table they have set up. But as they're standing on the table just collapses and they both just go sinking through it. But Homicide still pile drives Punk on the remnants of this table / the concrete floor, which didn't feel safe, but you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Joe locks in the STF on a Homicide with the fork. So Joe's got this STF locked in, but he's still jamming this fork into Homicide's head. Punk gets back into the picture at some point, missile drop kick. So it's back and forth. It's, it's chaos, this match is. Using each other's moves. Punk locks in the choke on Joe. Homicide does a CM Punk-esque swinging neckbreaker type of deal. And ultimately, though, the finish comes. I do like the finish, actually. Punk hits the Pepsi plunge onto Samoa Joe. Homicide, lariat to CM Punk. So Punk can't capitalize on this Pepsi plunge. Homicide takes out Punk and then capitalizes on the work that he did by pinning Samoa Joe. Homicide pins Samoa Joe 1, 2, 3 as a result of the Pepsi plunge. So I think this does actually enhance the Joe Punk story in the fact that it's now been proven that Punk has what it takes to keep Joe down for the 3 count, but he hit the Pepsi plunge in their first match, but his leg was too hurt and he couldn't capitalize on it. He hits the Pepsi plunge in this match, was able to get the win, but he wasn't the guy that got the pin. So there's this level of like intrigue and like, can Punk beat Joe? Because Joe's been so dominant. He's like 17 months into his reign at this point. Nobody can beat him, but Punk has shown signs that he can beat him. And I think this all adds to their second match that they eventually will have. But Homicide walks out the winner. So I don't know. And commentary makes it a point to say that whatever this Ring of Honor officials say that this is the last time Homicide and Samoa Joe will be in the ring together in 2004. So there's like 3 more months left, 5 or 6 shows. So this is the last time we'll see Joe and Homicide in the ring in 2004. Ring of Honor says they need a cooling off period. So why are they in the match here to begin with? But I don't know if does Homicide get another title match against Joe, or does he maybe doesn't get I guess he wouldn't get another match against Joe until Joe drops the title. So maybe they have like a singles match, non-title later down the line where Homicide beats him for the final. That's how I would picture it happening, but I don't know. I guess it builds the Rottweilers as a faction. We got some added intrigue to Punk and Joe coming down the line. And Homicide is now the icon of Ring of Honor, I guess, if that means anything to you. It was a fun match, but again, it just felt like it should have been a bigger deal because that was not even the main event. Do you know what was the main event? Ladies and gentlemen, the main event of night 2 and the main event of this episode. Scramble Cage Melee. Come on now. So let's set the scene. Let's lay the foundation before we get into this fucking insanity. So night 2, Scramble Cage. That's what the show's called, Scramble Cage Melee. And throughout the show, we're getting some backstage promos from all the participants in this match. And you know what? Let me just lay out the participants in this match in case you were curious. So it's a singles. It's every man for themselves. No teams or anything, even though there's teams in this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 people in this match. Who's in this match? We got Altar Boy Luke. I don't know. We got Altar Boy Luke versus Marcos versus Loke versus Diablo Santiago versus Fast Eddie versus Dan Moff versus Trent Acid versus Jack Evans versus BJ Whitmer versus Dunn versus DeVito versus Omen Tortuga. What in the goddamn early 2000s indie wrestling are these names, first of all? But quite the cast of characters, and we see promos throughout the night from some of these guys. First of all, Altar Boy Luke. I'm not familiar with this fella. This is his debut in Ring of Honor. I don't know what he went on to do, but it's a very sketchy character, this Altar Boy Luke. But Carnage Crew, they cut a promo backstage saying that they let us know that the winner of this match gets 10 times the pay, which is why they're entering this. This is the kind of violence they love, and the added pay on top of it. Why wouldn't they want to be a part of this? And that's kind of the theme of this, is that like how dangerous this match is, because I haven't even gotten into what this match is, which is, you know what, let me just tell you right now. Scramble Cage Melee, like I said, it's every man for themselves. There's no pinfalls, no submissions, no DQs, no countouts. The only way to eliminate your opponent is by jumping off the cage onto them. So it's a cage set up. You got 4 platforms on each corner. so that guys could get their balance and jump off the cage and whatever the fuck. So the whole premise here is that it's a very dangerous match, which of course it is. So it's like, why would anybody want to be a part of it? But apparently you get 10 times the pay if you win. Also, Ring Crew Express, Dunn and Marcos, they don't want to be a part of the Ring Crew anymore. They want to be stars. So this is their opportunity to show everybody what they got. And they're not going to take it anymore. And there's like a promo where they're like unloading the cage from the truck because they're there to set it up. But then they're like, you know what? No, we're not the Ring Crew anymore. And they get on top of this semi truck and they're cutting this promo on top of the truck. And they're like, you know, we're going to do our thing. And we're going to show you that we're more than the Ring Crew. And then they do their dumb pose. And it's like, whatever. And then another promo, we got Prince Nana with his boy Jimmy Rave, which, by the way, Jimmy Rave had a good showing this month against one of the Special K guys. He's using he stole the Styles Clash from his mentor AJ Styles, and he's calling it the Rave Clash. He's claiming he invented the move. It's a whole thing. But I like the direction that Jimmy Rave is going in at this point. He's like captured that cockiness that like I remember from Jimmy Rave. So doing big things with Jimmy Rave. But Prince Nana and his faction, the Embassy, Jimmy Rave is like the crown jewel of the group, which I think that's what his nickname would go on to be. But also members of the group are Omen Tortuga and Diablo Santiago, the Outcast Killers. And Nana doesn't give a fuck. They're disposable. They're jobbers. Go in there and break your neck. See if I care. But make me money is his thing. So, but the Outcast Killers have no choice because if they, you know, disband from the Embassy, they'll just be back on the Ring Crew, and they don't want that. So they gotta just eat shit and like the taste of it. Trent Acid, in a separate promo, says he's the master of the multi-man match, and he's been on a roll lately, barring that world title match. He's going to show why he's the best multi-man match guy, I guess. I don't know. And then Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer, who are probably the most significant guys in this match in terms of, you know, just success and booking and whatnot. So to recap, Dan Moff, BJ Whitmer, they have broken off from the Prophecy, which was previously led by Christopher Daniels. We still have not seen Daniels and all those TNA guys. I don't know when that subsides, but it's just Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer as a tag team. And Allison Danger is trying to bring them back into the Prophecy, but they say, no, thank you. They say, hey, Kathy. They're calling her by her real name. Kathy, let it go. We left the Prophecy for a reason. And if you keep getting involved in our matches, there's going to be consequences. Dan Moff's like, I'm not above giving consequences to a woman. This is your one warning. So threatening violence on Allison Danger. And but the whole thing is that Allison Danger, like, I guess as the de facto leader of the Prophecy now, she owns the contracts of Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer. So she forced them to be in this match, which I don't know if that all really makes sense necessarily, but I do like that kind of wrinkle to this story. So that's why they're in the match. So this is kind of giving you some of the backstory on some of the people in this match and why they want to win, why they're here in the first place. So I could talk about this match, right? But I think it'd be better to review the eliminations, quote unquote. Because remember, you can only eliminate your opponents by jumping off the top of the cage onto them. Who will come out the winner? Huh. Let's see, pal. So everybody comes out, one after the other. The ring's full, 12 people. Immediate chaos at the beginning, because of course it is. Most people like go to the outside and brawl, which just leaves the Carnage crew and Moff and Whitmer in the ring, and they have a fun little segment inside the ring. Which brings us to the first elimination. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pull the tape up. You know, maybe I'll give it like a rating out of 10. You know, maybe like we'll do it Olympic style. Like I'm grading the high dive or something. You know what I'm saying? So let's pull this bad boy up. First elimination. Which, by the way, look at this contraption. In each corner has these black like triangles. They're like big black platforms in the corner for guys to stand on, which I guess makes sense. If that's like the stipulation of the match, it makes sense. Now, we have our first elimination here. So we got Tony DeVito on the top. BJ Whitmer and Dan Moff are in the ring. Everybody else is on the outside.
The platforms at the last Scramble Cage match and at our best.
Whew. Moonsault from DeVito off the top of the... DeVito's a big boy, too. Moonsault off the top onto BJ and Dan Moff, thus eliminating Moff and BJ from the match. And they show a little replay here. Oh, a thing of beauty. A thing of beauty. You see Loke getting in there and checking on him. He landed kind of hard on his knees, but I give that... Because it was effective. The moonsault was good. The landing could have been better. It looked a little clunky, but it connected. It was accurate. I'll give it a 7. No, I'll give it an 8.1. How's that, folks? I know. 8.1. 8.1 for Tony DeVito on that moonsault to eliminate BJ and Dan Moff. So 2 guys down, 10 to go, or 9 to go, I guess. The next elimination comes from one Altar Boy Luke. Let's take a look. So we got Altar Boy Luke here on top of the cage. Now, you look inside the ring, nobody's up. Nobody's in the middle of the ring. So you might be asking yourself, Altar Boy Luke, what you doing, pal? What's your plan? Well, we're about to find out.
Right now, Altar Boy Luke has a reputation around the country as being a daredevil. He's looking around.
Woo-hoo! Swanton off the top of the cage to the outside onto BJ Whitmer, Dan Moff again. They're already eliminated, but they stayed because they kept fighting with the Carnage crew. But Luke lands on not only Dan and BJ, but also the Carnage crew, both of them. So he eliminates Loke and DeVito here with the Swanton. They show another replay here. I mean, geez, dude. Insane. I might be an Altar Boy Luke guy myself. Does he have merch? I'm going to buy it. So, 4 guys down. And it's at this point in the match where I'm thinking to myself, are they going to do like false finishes in this match? Like, are they going to like have people jump off the cage and then the guy like avoids it and then doesn't get eliminated? And as soon as I thought that, we got this. Oh, by the way, I didn't grade Altar Boy Luke. I'm going to give Altar Boy Luke, I think he gets an 8.56. Yeah. 8.56 for Altar Boy Luke. Just because the technique on the Swanton was great, but also we have the daredevil nature of it going to the outside. Much more dangerous. But it just looked very like, he's Altar Boy Luke. He's very religious in his character, and it just looked like, just take me away. It's like very like Jesus flying away. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know I don't know what that means, but anyways, Marcos goes to the top to attempt an elimination. Let's see if it follows through. So Dunn and Marcos are on like opposite corners of the cage, right? But nobody's like ready to be jumped on. So they're kind of just perched up there waiting for their moment. Marcos is up. He sees one of the Outcast killers down. Goes for the elbow and splat. Oh, man. You hate to see it. Marcos goes splat. Does not eliminate anybody, but puts his body on the line. But we have our next elimination on the way here. Fast Eddie has, I believe it's Dunn, on top of the cage. They're on the same platform. For anybody unfamiliar with Fast Eddie is a wrestler. He's legally blind. He can't drive, but he's on top of a rickety cage about to do God knows what. So let's see what he does.
The elbow from the top of the cage, and Dunn might not be able to continue. The Outcast killers. Oh my God! What's Marcos? Marcos is trying to superplex Eddie off.
Okay, I had Dunn and Marcos mixed up. It doesn't fucking matter.
Oh, this is exactly what I feared. We knew we were going to see injuries. What's Eddie doing?
Holy shit! Look at this. My God. My God. A moonsault fall away slam onto Marcos from the top of the cage onto a pile of bodies. I believe that's both Outcast Killers, Diablo Santiago, Omen Tortuga, and Altar Boy Luke. Onto those three guys. So all three of those guys are eliminated, as well as Dunn from the fall away slam. Actually, I think Dunn was, as was Marcos, who took the move. And I think his partner Dunn was also in that pile. So I think that's, 5 guys that Fast Eddie eliminated with one fell swoop. And it's so you have the efficiency in eliminating as many guys as possible. The technique of not only the fall away slam, but the moonsault, the defense. They're jockeying on top of the cage. He was able to get it out. He was able to get it off. It looked beautiful. It looked devastating. This Fast Eddie here gets a 9.7. Yeah, they're laughing because he's blind. So yeah, props to Fast Eddie. I think that might have been the best elimination of this match, or is it? Or is it? Let's find out. So at this point, by the way, Fast Eddie, he does eliminate all these people, but he ends up hurting his ankle in the process. So he actually eliminates himself as well because he can no longer continue. The referees get in the ring. They carry him out. So Fast Eddie's out of the match, but everybody he gets a standing ovation on the way out. It was just incredible. So now we're just down to 2 men. Jack Evans and Trent Acid, 1-on-1. Who is going to win? And this match becomes almost more like bizarre when the fact that it's 1-on-1, because no longer is it like a pile of bodies you're jumping onto. It's just one guy you're flinging your body at from the top of a cage, which is insane. So both guys are kind of going back and forth in the ring. Jack Evans hits a poison rana onto Trent from the second rope. Trent goes for a reverse DDT pile driver, but Jack counters it into a sliced bread. So they're going back and forth on the mat. They both go to the top of the cage, which let's take a look at this, man. Let's take a look at this. So this is incredibly nasty. Trent Acid is sitting on top of the platform on the cage. Jack Evans is on the platform with him, behind him. Let's see what happens here. Dude, Jack Evans goes for a Hurricane Rana off the top of the cage. But what happened, he doesn't really connect with him, and Trent falls like feet first to the mat, which if he has an injured ankle at this point, that can't help. But I don't even totally know what happened here. Let's take another look.
This is a train wreck.
Sure is, Mark Nolte. Okay, so Jack has him. Oh, yeah. So Jack, like, he connected actually with the leg scissors, but Trent, like, you can't really flip forward from that position. So he just kind of plummets. So this is not an elimination. I don't know if it's because they both just fell at the same time or what, but they both go splat into the mat. And they're both down. Can they continue? So Jack Evans gets up eventually, because I guess he technically delivered that move, so he's in the better sorts. Jack Evans, while Trent Acid is still on the mat, Jack Evans goes back to the top of the cage. And what does he do? Oh, dude. A 630. That was probably more than a 630. That was like a 670, 680, 690. But lands basically in a leg drop on Trent. Oh, I can't tell if it was a good landing or a bad landing. Let's take another look. They show a replay here. I mean, oh, I think he just missed catastrophe there. Because if he would have landed ass first on Trent's like midsection, that would have crushed him. But, my God, Jack Evans gets the win in this Scramble Cage Melee in spectacular fashion. What do we throw at that 630? We'll give it a... we'll give it a 8.3, I think. Yeah. I would grade it higher if he had stuck the landing a little better. I mean, if you're gonna do a 630 off the top of the cage, just fucking land it. It's easy. You know what I'm saying? So 8.3. So Fast Eddie's really the winner because he gets the highest apron bump score of his dive. So depends on what you classify as a winner, really, here. But in the Ring of Honor context, Jack Evans wins, which, let's recap. Generation Next, which Jack Evans is a part of. Austin Aries beats Bryan Danielson in a classic 75-minute match. Alex Shelley gets 2 wins. 1 win on both nights. Roddy Strong gets a win. Austin Aries gets another win over Colt Cabana. And now Jack Evans wins Scramble Cage Melee. So each of the guys in Generation Next walked out as a winner. Aries and Jack Evans both winning the main events of each night. So it's clear that this is the top faction in Ring of Honor right now. You got those thugs of the Rottweilers still causing havoc. But, man, Generation Next is here to stay, man. What a month for them, and what a scramble match that was. I'll say that this Scramble Melee, the rules are fucking silly, right? The rules are silly. But when I was watching it, it was sucking me in. I liked the way that it played out. I like that a lot of people got eliminated with each dive, so you didn't have 10 different dives throughout the match. And it was unique, and I was entertained by it. You know, it's like watching a car crash. It's like that kind of entertainment. But I was thoroughly entertained by that Scramble Cage. So props to all of those guys, and props to you for listening. Appreciate you guys tuning in. That's about all I got for you guys today in terms of Ring of Honor, August 2004. What a month it was, and what a listener you are. Appreciate you. Like I said, like the video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you're watching on audio, give it a 5-star rating, review, etc., etc. Follow me at Apron Bump on all the social medias. Join the Discord. Butter me up, call me Sally, and slap me on the face until I am red in the cheeks. Do all of those things. And with that, I think I'll bid you adieu. Take it easy. Mwah. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can